Part of being a human being is taking risks. And if you walk outside, you might be wearing that helmet and still, boom, get hit by a bus. And that's it. The point is that you can't go through life taking no risks. And it's really important. And some of the most beneficial things that have happened in my life have happened because I was willing to take risks, especially risks early on in my career, in my companies, that led to amazing outcomes. Of course, there's extreme survivorship bias. And so you should watch this video and make your own decisions, as I'll lay out some of the factors that go into thinking about taking risks, how to increase your risk tolerance, and maybe why that's not a good idea. What's up, guys? It's Justin back at it again with another video. Today, I want to talk to you about taking risks. It's part of life. Okay, so first off, why take risks at all? Risk tolerance is a bell curve. And maybe you're on one end and you're like, why the fuck should I take any risks? I live in a very nice, safe society. I've got a job. I've got a house. I don't need anything else. I should just play it safe. In today's world, the type of risk that I'm an expert in, entrepreneurship, well, entrepreneurship looks like a pretty good deal compared to getting on a boat for the next 3 to 5 years. If your startup doesn't work, you're not going to be lost at sea. You're not going to accidentally end up in America. You're not going to get scurvy. Instead, you're just going to have to go get another job at fucking Facebook or whatever. So really, it's not that bad. But still, all these people that I come across are always like, well, how do I get myself up to start a company? I'm scared. I got a good job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so how do you get yourself in the mental position where you're willing to take risks? The first thing that I think helps is you got to get started early. No matter who you are in the world, your risk tolerance is always going to go down. Even me. My risk tolerance has gone down over time as I've gotten comfortable, had kids, a family, a very nice life. So I'm like, well, why do I need to put it all on the line? And I don't. So the best thing to do is to start young. If you're watching this video and you're 25 or older, it's too late. Turn it off. For me, taking risks early in my career paid off big time because it helped me get access to experiences and opportunities that I wouldn't have had access to early on. It took a long time to get successful, and I wasn't successful in my first startup. My first startup was kind of a failure. But the thing that was good about starting early was that I got access to doing things like managing people, managing a P&L, learning about different areas of business, all when I was deeply unqualified and to do it because I was young, because I had to take the risk of starting the company to even get myself in the position where I'd have access to those learning opportunities. And that was the real payout. So if you have fear around taking a risk, I think one really good initial step is to understand why you have that fear. Is it your own perception of risk or is it somebody else's? For example, if you're thinking about starting a company, but your friends and family are like, that's insane, maybe it's really just them, it's not you. Or maybe it's an embedded perception that's embedded from society. You've been brainwashed by society who says, oh, starting a company is really risky, but it's actually not. Maybe you live in Asia where people are like, oh, you have to follow the fucking mold and don't start companies and it's risky. You want to toe the straight line. Or you want to do career trajectory, to work in big corporations and get on corporate welfare as soon as possible. But all that is outside you. Those are all external things. And I think you really have to understand whose perception is it. Starting companies is actually not that risky, especially if you're young, where you don't have a lot of expenses. You can always go and get another job. Another thing that might help you take some risks is visualizing what the actual downside is. Oftentimes we don't want to think about the downside of the unknown. So we don't think about it and we're just like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to touch that. But if you actually really get in the uncomfortable space of visualizing what is actually going to happen if I take this risk and it fails, what is failing going to look like? How's it going to play out? I think oftentimes you'll realize that it's actually not going to be as bad as you think. That goes for all sorts of uncomfortable situations, not just thinking about downside scenarios of risky bets. Like, for example, you're afraid to go and talk to somebody. Well, just visualize what is going to happen if I talk to that person and I bomb. They're going to look at me awkwardly. They're going to turn around and walk away. Well, you might die a little inside, but I promise you, your heart's not going to stop. You're going to be fine. And so thinking about what's that actual downside look like, sometimes that can make it a little bit more palatable to actually take the risk. If you're risk averse, you might only be focused on visualizing the downside. But if you visualize the upside, there's potentially huge amounts of upside in taking the risk. And conversely, you can make that much more real for you. Another way you can get yourself in the position where you want to take more risks, exposure therapy. So I used to ride a motorcycle back when I was risk seeking. And I remember I was very afraid to lane split, which is legal in California. It's when you ride between the two lanes. of the freeway, and the cars are going like this, and then you're riding between the two. And at first I was like, I'm really scared to lane split. Seems like super risky. Then I was stuck in traffic. Nothing was going anywhere. It was like going 1 mile an hour. So I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to go between. And I'm going to go like 5 miles an hour between these cars going 1 mile an hour. So I'm going 5 miles an hour, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty comfortable. And if you're a motorcyclist, you'll know this. You realize that you can see when people are going to merge lanes and potentially put you in a dangerous situation. And so you can, because their heads go like this, and then people's heads go, and then they move over. So you can watch out for that. And you're like, oh, this isn't that dangerous. And then you build your lane splitting at 5 miles an hour, and then pretty soon that becomes 10, 20. And eventually on my commute home, I'm lane splitting 80 miles an hour down between two lanes of traffic, going 45 to 50. And so I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but my risk tolerance definitely built itself up over time. So if you're in a situation where you want to build up your own risk tolerance, maybe take the small risk first and then work your way up to taking the bigger leap. The last thing I'm thinking about is that I'm saying all of this and talking all this shit here in this video, but that at the end of the day, you have to think about, is this risk true to yourself? You might get sucked in to listening to me hype you up, or someone like me, and you might think I've got to take all of these risks and prove myself or whatever. But maybe you don't. Maybe that's not who you are. Maybe you are the person who wears the bicycle helmet when you walk out on the street. No, I'm just kidding. There's no shame in that. Maybe you're somebody who doesn't want to take risks, and that's okay. You gotta, no matter who you are, you gotta be authentic to yourself. All right, that's the video. I hope this is helpful to you. Let's go base jumping. Just kidding. I've got 2 kids.